Hi, this is Bren Masson, host of Freshwaves. This is Organ Donation Awareness Month. And during this month, we feature the stories of not only the donors and their families, but of recipients. Organ recipients who are alive today because someone was generous enough to either be a living donor or to donate their organs once they had passed away. More than 90% of Ontarians are in favor of organ donation. However, only 1 in 3 Ontarians have registered their consent to donate. It only takes 2 minutes. Go to beadonor.ca and you can register there. It really only takes a couple of minutes. On average, there are 1,400 people in Ontario waiting for a life-saving organ transplant. Sharing your decision to donate is the best gift. Make sure you have that kitchen table conversation with your family and your closest friends so that they know your wishes and they are aware of what you would like to do. Then go to beadonor.ca and register to be an organ donor. The most precious gift you can give is the gift of life. Today, we're going to be talking with Steve Mitchell. Steve Mitchell is a longtime friend of mine and a longtime friend of the station. As a videographer, he used to carry our audio when we were doing audio broadcasts of the Stouffville Spirit Games. Steve is a heart transplant recipient, and he is an advocate for organ donation awareness. The Stouffville Spirit does a couple of events a year that showcase organ donation. And, of course, with the Humboldt accident and Logan Boulet bringing organ donation to the forefront in the hockey world, Steve has generously donated his time as an advocate for organ donation. Hi, Steve, and welcome to Fresh Waves.
Hi, Brenda.
Well, it's lovely to have you on the show. I mean, we know you as Steve Mitchell, the videographer for the Stouffville Spirit and the Aurora Tigers. So you were actively doing something that you really liked. When did you know that you had a problem with your heart?
Well, I was always active in sports, both, as a youth, through my teens, through high school, and into my 20s. I played hockey, I played baseball, I played squash, a lot of tennis, both outdoors and when the weather was good, and in indoor facilities when it was not. And I started getting some extra heartbeats, but they quickly subsided. This was when I was 24, and I didn't think too much of it in the very beginning because I wasn't entirely sure it was my heart. I thought it was just like a muscle spasm, in my chest or near my neck and things like that. And but boy, did I ever get those extra heartbeats bad one day on playing I was playing tennis like on the hottest day in July. You know how it is when we have that, humidity at a super high level and the temperature's at a high level and you don't even want to go outdoors. But I had a tournament match that day, and that just knocked everything out of me. And I went to the hospital to get it checked out, but by the time I got to the hospital, my heart rate returned to normal. They kept me overnight and did a bunch of tests on me, and they didn't find anything. And I thought, oh, great. I hope I don't have to go through something like this again. But I had a false sense of security that, hey, maybe it was nothing after all. But it happened again after a ball tournament, and that time I did go to the hospital, and they did get me hooked up to an ECG, and that's when I found that I had a condition called ARVD. The RVD, I can't remember the A part, but the RVD stands for right ventricular dysplasia. And that's just something that people get. It's probably a little more common than most people think it would be. Like some people get atrial fibrillation and some people get right ventricular dysplasia. And they're both not fun, but the RVD is a little more serious because it can lead to, a full-blown heart attack or cardiac arrest. And so I was naturally, scared out of my wits at 24. But I was in the hospital it was York County then, it's South Lake now. And boom, I had this thrust upon me, but there was a plan, and it was treated with medication, and the medication worked, and I had regular checkups, and I thought, it is an inconvenience, but it's under control, and for the most part, it was good. It didn't cause me any issues. So this was in 1988. So by around 1994, out of nowhere, I'm the youngest of 4 children in our family. The younger of my 2 sisters gets the same thing, and we're like, whoa, this is maybe more than a little of a coincidence.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 years after that, my brother, who is closest to me in age, we're only 2 years apart, he gets it.
Unbelievable.
And yes, so the only person that didn't get it was my oldest sister. So we have a family of 4 kids, and 3 people have the same condition. I'm the youngest, but I got it first, and we got medication. Now, the problem with the medication we were on is, for lack of a better term, it's commonly referred to as a older person's medication. It was really powerful. It was really effective, but it's something you can't be on forever because the benefits of it will be outweighed by the long-term damage that the drug can do to your other organs in your body. I mean, a lot of people don't think about it, but your liver and your kidneys are just as important as your heart. And if you're getting a buildup, I guess, of residue, if that's what you want to call it, on the short term, it won't really do much. But when we're talking like you're in your 20s or your 30s and you're on this medication, it's going to build up some problems down the road in life. And so there was a shift when myself and my brother and my younger sister had to get off this medicine, get on to a milder medicine. And because the medicine was not quite as powerful, we also got what's called ICDs, or implanted cardiac devices. And ours were combo units. Like most people think, well, you're going to get a pacemaker and that's going to control your heart rate. And we did, but the other part of the ICD is a built-in defibrillator. So if your medicine fails you and your pacemaker, fails you, this is your last line of defense, that if you go into ventricular tachycardia, it will shock your heart back to the normal rate. Otherwise, you'd have to go to the hospital and get the paddle treatment, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And it is very unpleasant. I would, to put it bluntly, I'd rather be punched in the face as hard as somebody could punch me than have my defibrillator go off, because it's painful. Now, for the longest time, it didn't go off, but after I switched to this more milder medication, and your body changes as you get older and you have less tolerance for certain things. I remember I was playing softball and I had my tachycardia come back, and boom, I got zapped on the baseball field and fell to the ground. It felt like somebody snuck up on me and hit me with a baseball bat. And my siblings had, similar experiences. And part of that is just chalked up to, medicine changes and body changes and proper calibration of the device, etc. I mean, it's a heck of a way to find out that your device needs a little more calibration. But, we went through those things and we learned, and the doctors learned more about, changing our treatment plans, and so to speak. And we went to the pacemaker clinic for regular checkups and that. And once again, it was uncomfortable having a device like this. And I always told people it was like having a Control-Alt-Delete button in your body that you weren't in control of. So getting a reboot, messes you up physically and, more importantly, psychologically, emotionally. When I got into around 2017, my tachycardia was coming back. So, I'm on medicine. I have a pacemaker and I have an ICD, and they're starting to show signs that none of those things were 100% effective. And that's the scary part. And I'm going to tell you, there was one night in early 2017, I was a little under the weather, but, I don't get sick pay. So I went to do a Stouffville Spirit game, and I wasn't feeling a little good, maybe a little bit dehydrated. It was your typical, winter cold flu. And I left the game, and I was on my way home driving on Bloomington West, and I got zapped while driving. And
oh no!
And yes, and thankfully there was nobody else on the road. I went, whoa, where did that come from? Because I didn't feel it. Like, you're driving, and you're feeling the bumps and the engine, shaking and everything while you're driving. So I didn't feel it was coming. And I pulled over the side of the road, and I was like, wow. I gathered my wits. My heart returned to normal. And I got back on the road, and I made it home, but then it was happening again at home. So I called for an ambulance, and once again, I had some treatment at the hospital and some more investigation in that. And then that little incident had subsided because I think it was brought on by being dehydrated, and your electrolytes are very, very important to your heart rhythm. Mm-hmm. And so there's another learning experience, First of all, I was stupid for going to work. My wife was away at the time, so I was alone, and I should have taken better care of myself in that situation. So
it's easy, though. It's easy to get caught up in the fact that the game is happening. It's you're at a certain time of the year where every game seems to be so important, and the scouts are going to be there, and the parents are relying on having this video footage, and the scouts need this video footage, and everybody's really intense around the hockey arena.
Yes, and the team needed me, the players needed me, the parents needed me.
Yeah, exactly. I needed you. You got to carry my audio feed. Come on, Steve. Yes, where are you? You can't take a day off.
Yeah, and it was a question too of every team had to have their games online.
Yes.
And if I don't show up, it doesn't happen.
Right.
So
you feel this really big obligation, and I know other jobs have their pressures, but in this particular case, these kids are young, and their whole careers depend on this video footage being available to scouts and to people who want to promote them into getting scholarships that are worth a whole lot of money.
Yes, and I would do a number of scholarship videos. The parents would request them. Yep. And I'd build a highlight reel for players, and some of my footage I would get requests from NHL Central Scouting, and sometimes some of my footage you would see on coverage of the NHL draft when player A, B, or C that happened to be playing in the OJHL was drafted, and they needed a clip of showing them how they played in junior hockey. Mm-hmm. And, it was kind of an honor having your video, make it onto TSN, Sportsnet, Hockey Night in Canada, and things like that.
For sure.
So I thought that was cool.
Well, that's how you fall into the trap of never being able to take a day off.
Well, and that's the thing. Like a lot of people, when the game's over, they figure, well, that's it. Like my job was only half done.
Exactly.
I had to go home after the game. And you have to remember, by the time I got home from most hockey games, it would be like 11 p.m. But if it was a road game in like Kingston or Trenton or Wellington or whatever, I'm getting home in like, really, really wee hours of the morning.
Yep.
And I'm still only half done because the coach wants the video to review when he wakes up first thing the next morning. And the fans want to see their highlight video. The scouts are probably looking through things, and the advanced scouting for the other teams is like, hey, I have to watch the Stouffville game from last night because, we play them tomorrow night, and I want to see what their strengths and weaknesses are.
While this is all going on, none of us knew that you were sick. None of us knew that you had a heart condition. And we're going to take a break here at the station, and when we come back, we'll talk about the fact that when you got sick and we'd heard Steve's had a heart transplant, it took us all by surprise. And we were so shocked, but we were so thankful that you got the transplant. We'll be right back. You're listening to Fresh Waves. Today we're talking with Steve Mitchell. Steve Mitchell is a videographer. And now I think most importantly, Steve, you are a heart transplant recipient and survivor. We'll be right back on Fresh Waves, so stay tuned. Hi, we're back on Fresh Waves. I'm your host, Bren Masson. If you would like to hear any of this broadcast again, you can go to our YouTube channel, Fresh Waves Radio. Hit subscribe. We love to have subscribers. And the whole month of April is going to be donated to organ donation awareness, and that's what brings us the show today with Steve Mitchell. Steve Mitchell is a friend of mine, a friend of Whistle FM, where this show originated from, and I know Steve from doing hockey games for the Stouffville Spirit. And if you'd like to know the background, you have to listen to the first half of the show that just aired. And you can do that by going to YouTube, Fresh Waves Radio. We're going to continue on right now. Steve, let's talk from 2018.
So we get to the fall of 2018, and I'm getting my checkups, and there's a hint in my checkups that I might have heart failure. And when you first hear the words heart failure, you think my heart's going to fail and I'm going to drop dead suddenly. And I mean, that's a natural reaction, but there are different kinds of heart failure where it's a more gradual disease. Like I know some people that have been in heart failure for many years. But if they're supported by medicine and lifestyle changes and diet changes and that, they can extend their life, but it's something that's on the horizon for them. And I first started getting the hints, and the doctor suggested I might be in the early stages of heart failure. And so I'm like, frantically looking up things online and that, and besides, doctor's consultations. And so I started, maybe slowing down a little bit and, watching my salt intake and my fat intake and the quality of the foods I was eating, doing things I should have been doing all along, but there's a bit more of an urgency to it.
Mm-hmm. I remember the first day you turned down an order of fries at the Stouffville Arena. Shocked the heck out of me.
Yeah, I know.
They were really good.
There were really good fries and gravy too. And I started losing weight. I thought, hey, this is great. I finally got my act together, And the weight was coming off easy. And I just kept it up, but I was having a blood pressure problem, and so I got put on blood pressure medication, and I I didn't like it. It gave me headaches, and it gave me nausea, and my body started feeling, numb all the time. And I got to the point, as we're getting closer to Christmas, that, I was less enthusiastic about my job. I was having problems carrying my gear. I mean, I look at Stouffville, and I looked at the Newmarket Arena, and those are pretty steep stairs. And I think for a healthy person, going up and down those stairs, it's a piece of cake, maybe a little bit of a challenge. For me, it was like I was looking at, these long stairs, and it's like, oh God, I might have to stop halfway to catch my breath. And that kind of thing was happening, and it evolved to the point where I needed people to help me carry my gear up and down the stairs. And I was always cold, like the arenas today are colder than what they used to be, because I think they're saving money on electricity by not having the heaters on as much. And boy, was I ever feeling that. And then I got to the point where I was just downright miserable having to do hockey, but I needed to do hockey because I needed a source of income. And I was feeling overworked and everything. And so we started the process of doing some more extensive tests and things like that. And I was doing like an ultrasound and ECGs and all those things. And my ultrasound came back, and I got a call from the pacemaker clinic and my cardiologist, and they said, we'd like you to see a heart failure specialist on, I think it was Tuesday, March the 3rd. So the last hockey game I shot was Sunday, March the 1st in 2019. And at the time, I didn't know it was the last hockey game I would ever shoot. So I go to the heart failure specialist across the street from South Lake Hospital, and she says, Mr. Mitchell, I don't even have to look at all these test results here. I can tell just by looking at you that you're in heart failure, and not just heart failure, but advanced stage heart failure, and you need a transplant. And I was dumbfounded. It was like you hit me over the head with a sledgehammer, and I was in shock. And I knew there was a problem, but I went in there thinking, you know what, maybe I have a blockage and I need a bypass. And I was naturally upset. And the heart failure specialist, she started stepping me through the steps that they were going to take. The first of which was later that day, they were going to admit me to cardiac ICU. And I was like, oh, cardiac ICU. That's, I know I needed a heart transplant, and we were getting right to the bottom of things right away. And they sent me home for a few hours until my room was ready. And, you know, I had the natural reaction. I cried a lot. I cried in the car on the drive home. I cried when I called my brother to tell the rest of the family, because I wasn't up to telling everybody that yet. Mm-hmm. I got my wife to come home from work. Thankfully, she lived close by. I broke the news to her in person. And then I called the kids home. And I told them, and it was a very weepy process.
It would be really emotional for sure.
Yes. And I do remember that I had gathered some things like clothes and that, and to go to the hospital, and eventually, like a few hours later, my room was ready. And as I was leaving, we live in a condo, and I was leaving my condo, I looked around and everything. I've had my dog, and the the pessimistic voice in my head was saying, this may be the last time you're in this building, period.
Mm-hmm.
And off I went to South Lake Hospital in Newmarket, cardiac ICU. They admitted me, and my initial shock was when I went into the room that I was being put in, I audibly gasped, and the nurse said, "What's wrong?" I said, "The bed you're putting me in this room, is the exact same spot my father died in 2012.
Wow.
Yeah, and I mean, you don't. I notice every detail in some things. I can't explain it, but I can easily recall. It's like a 3D model in my mind of everything that went down when my dad died.
Mm-hmm.
And the nurse said, "Oh, let me see if I can find you another room." And then I had a bit of an epiphany, and I said, "No." I said, "I want to stay here because I feel my father's presence, and I think it will help me." And it did. It was a rallying point for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I was on a workup program. So a workup program means they're stabilizing you in the hospital to extend your life. Like I didn't have a firm date of how much longer I had to live, but it was serious enough that I was admitted immediately, and I needed a transplant, and they needed to stabilize me so I would make it to transplant.
Mm-hmm.
And I was on some very powerful drugs. I was on, I had 3 IV lines going, and one of the IV lines was through my jugular,
E.
which I didn't even think was possible. But that was giving me this most powerful drug that really kept me alive. That gave my heart a little boost,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of the problem was to build up my strength and to extend the lifespan of my current heart until I could get another heart. And also I was on a strict, low sodium, low liquid diet. And if I want to circle back to all those symptoms I started feeling in the fall of 2018, I was clearly in heart failure then, because some of the symptoms of heart failure are, you know, chances of tachycardia, increased blood pressure, sudden and rapid weight loss. And the weight loss wasn't because I was eating better. The weight loss is when your heart is not pumping at 100% capacity, your digestive system is one of the first things that gets affected, because your digestive system is not functioning properly. It's not absorbing the nutrients in the food you eat. And so things are looking pretty grim for me. And
Now,
I remember,
did they tell you at this point what the odds were of you finding a heart? Because sometimes they're just not very good.
no, they didn't. I was pretty savvy, in I thought I had a problem because I'm in my mid 50s, and I thought, what are they gonna? Why are they gonna waste a heart on me? I'm sure there's like a kid or a 20-year-old person with their whole life ahead of them. I've got to be, last priority on this. And it was a pessimistic way of looking at it, but
Well, I
I
would say
mean,
it's more of a realistic way of looking at it.
yeah, and when you're in that situation, your mind is almost as big as an enemy to you, or benefit, depending on how you can spin it to yourself, of what lies in your future.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm faced with the real possibility that I'm going to die, and I'm hopeful. I'm not going to die, but it's a definite possibility. And so next to the fear of dying or the fear of suffering, also becomes the fear of missing out. It's like I look at my wife and I look at my son and I look at my daughter and I think they're going to go on without me. Yes, I want them to lead happy, long, productive lives, but I'm going to miss out on things, it's like a story is being told that I'm no longer part of, or going to be a part of. And that's what mentally disturbed me the most. I'm not going to be there to, help my family if they need me, and I'm going to miss out on their triumphs too. Like I have a daughter that's getting married next year, and the thought of, missing out on that, and things like that. And so I'm only in South Lake for 11 days until they transfer me to Toronto General, because they're the experts. And
it's a fabulous place.
Yes, and that's good for my condition, and it's another step into the process of trying to keep me alive. And the only downside to that is, all my family living in the Aurora area now has to come to Toronto to see me, and it's a little harder for them. Life is going on without me, and so I found that a little difficult.
And there's always a struggle, I've heard, with other organ recipients, that in this waiting period, they do go through bouts of depression. And it's very dangerous, because when you're in a bout of depression, your numbers go down, your stress goes up, you're not living the best life, and it can be detrimental to your chances of getting the transplant that you're waiting for, which is causing the stress in the first place. It's a real wheel that it's very hard to navigate that space.
Yes. So I was admitted on March the 3rd, and they stabilized me to the point, and to my surprise, that I was released from Toronto General on April the 11th. And I had visions of being in there until, my transplant or the loss of my life. And so when I did start feeling stronger, I still had to, do some light exercising by walking the halls of the cardiac floor, just because, it was all about, you got to get the blood pumping, and you've got to, you can't.
You have to stay as healthy as possible so that you can withstand the really intense surgery of a transplant.
Yes, exactly. And that was part of my dad's problem. He needed surgery, and he wasn't strong. The surgery could have saved his life, but he wasn't strong enough to get surgery.
Yeah.
And that was frustrating. Like he didn't get the chance that they were working so hard to give me. And they did. They brought me back from the brink. And
then they let you go home?
And then they let me go home. Now wow. I still had like checkups, and I was following, the strict diet routine and everything. And I had an app. It was really fascinating. I had an app that just released. And at home, I would do all my vitals, and I would journal, But I was in the sit around and wait portion now. And it was difficult, because you don't know when. First of all, I still hadn't been put on the transplant list, and I ended up finally making the transplant list. I had to be designated as a worthy candidate.
Yeah,
and that was the hard part. It's like if I'm not a worthy candidate, it's over.
That's true.
The only question left is how much time. And I did, like most doctors, I would say, how much time do you think I have? And they'd be like, oh, Mr. Mitchell, we got plenty of tricks up our sleeves, so you don't need to worry about anything like that. Which, was a good thing to say to me.
Reassuring.
To give me reassuring. But one doctor gave it to me straight, and I learned why the answer that I most wanted was not something I wanted to hear. And he said, based on everything I've seen, your results, your CAT scan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, I'll give you to about Labor Day. And so this was in May, and I'm like, well, oh boy. And and I'm so now my entire focus has shifted to Labor Day. Okay, so I got to make it to Labor Day. And so in that regard, I was sorry I asked the question, because although you want to know, you don't want to know as well.
Yeah, careful what you wish for.
Yeah, and I wasn't even on the transplant list yet, but I did get put on about a week after I asked that question, because I had to be cleared, and so it becomes the waiting game. And I did have a couple of some light tachycardia that put me into South Lake Hospital for a couple of days, but it gives you a little scare. I liken it to like an earthquake in California. Like they get them all the time, but it's always in the back of their mind, is this the big one?
Yeah.
Where California is supposedly supposed to, slide into the ocean. And so when you have a heart problem and you get that little trigger, it's like, this better not be it,
Mm-hmm.
So that was difficult too.
Now, when did you get the news that there was a heart for you?
Well, first of all, there was 2 false alarms.
Oh.
When there are, when you're on the transplant list, there's never just one candidate for that organ. They have backups, because things happen at the last minute. Maybe in the final round of testing, maybe you're not the best candidate for that organ, and things can change. So you would be the primary, or there'd be 2 backups. And in July, I got the call that I was a backup candidate. And when you're the backup candidate or the primary candidate, you stop everything you're doing and you get yourself to the hospital. And I didn't even make it to the hospital. We were on the 404 around Finch Avenue, and the call came in, sorry, you're not qualifying as a backup. Turn around and go home. So that's
wow.
Pretty deflating.
Yeah.
And then in August, I get one that's even more gut-wrenching. I'm a backup candidate. This time I make it to the hospital. This time we're still not sure if the primary candidate is going to get it, so we're going to prep you for surgery. And I was prepped for surgery, and I was, just about to get all the tubes put in me, including the one in my jugular. And I'm waiting, and the doctor said, oh, no, in 15 minutes. And 15 minutes turns into an hour, and I'm thinking, they haven't sent me home yet, so this may be it. And this is like at 3 a.m. in the morning, too. And they come in and they say, okay, stop the process. The primary candidate is a go. And so I had to get all the things ripped off my body and out of my body and things like that. And I had a very quiet drive home with my wife at 4 a.m. It was very deflating. But finally, I get the call. It's September 18th. So I made it 2 weeks past Labor Day, because I'm thinking, well, if I I don't get Labor Day, maybe I can get Thanksgiving. And the reason you, at that point, as sad as this sounds, you wait by the phone on long weekends because car accidents used to be the number one source of organ donation.
Yeah. As sad
And
as that is. Yep.
yes, and but then I learned that's no longer the case. Drug overdoses are the number one sources of organ donation. And by the way, I don't know what happened to my donor. I'm not allowed to know what happened to my donor. I'm not allowed to know the family name, the person name, or anything. But obviously, I got a call on September 18th at dinner time that you're the number one candidate, get to, the hospital. And so my wife and I, we drop everything. We don't even eat dinner. And we go. And we're in a holding pattern because everything has to come together. Like, I'm calling everybody that is closest to me, and I'm telling them, this is it. And if for any reason I don't make it, I'm saying my goodbyes. And that was pretty emotional and tearful. And everyone's full of hope. And I'm given various times. Okay, it looks like you're going into surgery around 10 p.m. and then that turns into 1 p.m. and that turns into 4 a.m. And I'm trying to sleep. My wife is trying to sleep, and it's almost near impossible to sleep because your adrenaline is going and you're mentally preparing yourself for either a life-saving surgery or, it's more common today, those transplant surgeries. But, it's in the back of your mind, hey, this might not work,
Yeah, the only non-invasive surgery is surgery done on someone else.
Yeah, exactly. And they were really good at giving you materials to read to take you through the steps of heart failure, of preparing for heart transplant, getting a heart transplant, post-heart transplant. And so I was well educated. I went into surgery at 6:30 and 6:30 in the morning. And I say my goodbyes to my wife, and she, you know what? She has the hard part, and my daughter was at the hospital too. They have the hard part. They've got to wait this out. I'm blissfully unaware of what's going on because I'm knocked out.
Right.
And I will tell you a joke, but feel free to delete this, Brenda, if you don't want to. I turned to humor to try and get the stress off of a stressful situation, and they're just about to put me under, and I gave a little short speech. I said, I just want everybody here in this team to know how much I appreciate your efforts. I said, no matter how this turns out, I want to thank you. And then I said, but if it's all the same, I'd like to at least live long enough to see Trump go to prison. and they all had a good laugh, and they put me to sleep. And boy, what a sleep that was! I'd love to have a sleep like that again. I briefly woke up that night, but I was like really out of it that I just immediately went back to sleep. And then I was awake again the next morning, and I was like grateful to be alive. It was, I can't describe the euphoric feeling. Part of that might have been, IV induced, but to feel like you did it, I still had a way to go in recovery and rehabilitation and that, but it's like the greatest gift, and you've been given a second chance, and it changes you. It not physically, it changes you mentally and emotionally. And I had some tough rehab, but I got through it, and surprisingly enough, I was home just after heart transplant surgery. I was home just under a month.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, the important thing is a heart transplant. It's a treatment. It's an ongoing treatment. It's not a cure.
Yes.
So I'm dealing with the ramifications of my life now that caused me to lose my heart and have underlying conditions of damage to other organs and that. But at least I'm alive, and I have a fighting chance at continuing. Like I'm 60 years old now. This September 19th, that'll be 5 years post transplant. The first year is the hardest to get through. That's one milestone. Year 2 is another milestone. Year 5 is an excellent milestone for long-term, survivability, etc. And I'm very conscious. I'm not guaranteed anything. None of us are. So I'm just grateful to be alive and enjoying myself as much as possible. I'm not one of those miracle survivors that goes out and runs a marathon or anything like that. Not at my age. Sometimes you hear of heart transplant patients that are pick up right where they left off in terms of being very athletic. I'm not talking professional or anything. I'm just talking about people that hit the gym regularly and run every day, and I walk now. I'm at an age where I'm comfortable walking, not running.
No, that's fine.
Yes.
I want to go back to one thing.
Yes.
How did it feel when you woke up after surgery? Like, you must have opened your eyes and looked around, and what did you think?
Well, the first thing is you're orienting yourself.
Right.
You're trying to get some kind of reference of when you are. I know where I am. I'm not confident about. I'm not certain about how I am. And I have a tube down my throat, so I can't talk. Mm-hmm. So they notice me stirring and waking up, and very, very, slowly. And because I still have a lot of tubes in me, I make a pointing gesture from one hand to my wrist because I want to know what time it is. And they said, Mr. Mitchell, it's it's Thursday or Friday, I can't even remember, and it's 10:30, and your family was here last night, and we're going to call them right now and tell them you're awake, and et cetera, because I'm in no condition like to pick up a cell phone or anything like that.
Yeah.
But like I'm sleeping off and on a lot. I'm just happy to be alive. And I'm not talking at first, so I'm giving the nurse. I'm holding my fist sideways with my thumb out, like the Roman emperors used to do, and I'm doing the thumbs up or thumbs down, like which is it? And they told me, no, you're doing good. We had a good surgery. It was all a success, and so I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah, it must have been fabulous.
Yes, and when you're for the first week of post-transplant, you have your own dedicated nurse, and her desk is basically at the foot of your bed, and so this isn't the case where you're hitting the call when most people are in the hospital and they hit the call button and they're waiting for the nurse to bring them something or that sort of thing. And I've got a nurse ready to spring into action for any reason whatsoever. It's very spoiling. And I'm getting regular doctor visits. And I'm not just talking, a cardiologist here and cardiologist there. I'm getting the top people, like the number 1 and the number 2 person in all of Canada coming in to look at me, and that's encouraging too. And things
for sure. And you're at the third best hospital in the world.
Yes. I was happy to see them move up a notch in the ratings.
Yeah,
in my ratings, they're number one.
Yeah, it just doesn't get much better than Toronto General Hospital. It is a fantastic place to be.
Yes, and no disrespect to my wife, I sometimes tell people I'm married to Toronto General now. Like I will always be dependent on them. I go for regular checkups, and I will continue to go for regular checkups as long as I'm alive. They've got the team. You know your story is not over after you get that transplant. It's a treatment, not a cure, and so like treatments, you need tweaks here and there and checkups, and they stay on top of things that they never like you never thought was possible, you know. So that's like the peace of mind I have too. Like I'm not indestructible, you know. I'm not going to last forever, but
now you've got a fighting chance, right?
Yeah, my future is I still have a future.
Absolutely. And that's the best that anyone can hope for.
That's all I need is hope in future and longevity. Now,
do you really appreciate every day now?
I do. And I don't let things that used to either bother me or annoy me, I don't get bent out of shape for. Not because it's just not good for me, for like blood pressure and things like that, but there's some things that just don't matter anymore. Like I'm always been a big sports fan, you know, Leafs, Blue Jays sort of thing. But if they lose, oh well.
Yeah.
You know, if they get eliminated from the playoffs, oh well.
Yeah.
And I often use the line, I've suffered worse trauma than my team losing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
it's funny. You said that to me, after your transplant when we were speaking on the phone one day. And, I said, but you know, you get so caught up in it, and do you still get that feeling that you can't go to bed because, you know, you just don't know what's going to happen? And you said, well, someone's going to win and someone's going to lose. That's exactly the way it is.
Yep. And I'm just, you know, happy to be alive and happy to be in a better position to enjoy life. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I do lay low during cold and flu season. Yeah. Because being immune compromised, I have had pneumonia once since the transplant, and that was not a fun experience. I was in the hospital for 3 weeks. I did have a mild case of COVID, January 2023, that I had it. I was in bed for about a month, but I only needed to go to the hospital for IV treatment, 3 consecutive days. Mm-hmm. And, other than that, I just had to ride it out. I still mask when it's necessary, especially, you know, at doctor's checkups and that, because there's people there with germs that are getting checked out too. So I'm very careful of that sort of thing. But other than laying low during cold and flu season, I'm living a relatively, you know, normal but slower life than what I'm used to. I'm looking forward to going to a ton of Blue Jay games again this year. I went to 20 last year, and I'll probably do about the same this year.
Wow.
And yeah, that probably makes me happier than anything.
It's good to see that you're back on your feet and living a life and enjoying what life has to offer, and that's all anyone can hope for. I mean, you are a lucky guy in an unlucky situation. You're a lucky guy.
And I know that. And every time my anniversary comes up, it's not only a celebration of, you know, me getting my heart transplant, it is also a remembrance of my donor, whoever that may be, of the loss of their life and their gift to me. So I'm very cognizant of that. My day of celebration is a day of mourning
for someone else,
a family and friends of the donor. But
what a lovely legacy to leave behind. To
Yes.
leave behind the gift of life for someone else is a beautiful legacy. And I hope that on the day of that person's passing, that they also remember the gift that that person gave, the ultimate giving
Yes.
gift of life for someone else.
Yes, exactly.
You know, it's one thing to say to somebody, go to beadonor.ca and sign up and be an organ donor. We say that all the time. But it's a story like yours where people realize why they need to go to beadonor.ca.
I'm living proof of people that, that this sort of thing happens to. It's that age-old story, well, that's never going to happen to me. And then it becomes, why me? And then it's like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened to me. It's various stages, and it's a success story. And
it absolutely is.
I'm not talking about my personal success. I'm talking about the success of the system. The system is greater than anything that I could, take pride in. It's the fact that somebody signed their organ donor card, and a whole team of people worked to save me. It's overwhelming. In memory of my donor, I want to be the best possible version I can be of me, and prove to myself and the world that I deserve this second chance.
Mm-hmm. Well, Steve, thank you so much for talking with us today. We really appreciate you spending the time and telling us your story. For anyone who wants to hear it again, you can go to our YouTube channel, Freshwaves Radio, and hit subscribe. We love to have subscribers, and that helps to promote the show because everyone at Community Radio, we're all volunteers. So, Steve, thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you for your inspiration.
Me to be on the show.
Oh, we love having you on. So go to beadonor.ca, sign up to be an organ donor, register at beadonor.ca. Have a wonderful day, and we will talk to you again next week on Fresh Waves.